Welcome. This week, we're going to talk about why cardio is keeping you overweight. Now, first, we're going to get some of the gray out of here because obviously everything is very specific. So, this does not apply to a sport specific person. So, somebody who is a triathlete, I'm not talking to you, obviously. Like, you have a specific sport that you have to train for. And of course, somebody who's at that level of an athlete or performing a sport like that is properly fueling their bodies. So I'm not referring to that type of person. And I'm also not referring to like short bouts of cardio. So like 4 to 6 weeks of cardio. And if you're properly fueling your body and doing the right dosages of cardio, you might be okay. You're also coupling it with strength training. Obviously, cardio just isn't your only form of exercise. I'm not referring to you. So don't come at me because there's gray here. So I'm referring to mostly just like beginners or specifically overweight individuals. And you don't necessarily even have to be like 40 or 50 pounds overweight, but even like 10, let's just say 10 to 15 pounds overweight. You've never trained before. You have like fat in your soft that you kind of want to get rid of. That's who I'm talking to. So, because those types of people will normally gravitate towards restricting of calories and cardio, running. And whenever I say running, I'm going to use running a lot here just because it's easier. But whenever I say running, I mean all kinds of like higher intensity, steady state, like running, HIIT, circuit training. I don't know, F45, like those types of cardio based training things. That's what I'm talking about. So, I wrote down a couple things that I want to make sure I touch on, but it's pretty much as jumbled as my head is. So we'll see how this goes. So what we want to talk about first is kind of what happens whenever we start doing cardio. Like what happens to that type of like that avatar I described, that beginner who has some body fat to lose, who's never trained before, has very minimal muscle on their body, and they are like, okay, I want to lose weight. I'm going to start restricting my calories and I'm going to start running. That's normally what this type of person will do. And it is going to work against them. And another reason, it's not only physical. I'm going to get into what physically happens to your body, but with this type of person I'm talking about, what mentally happens to your body is almost far worse because you end up quitting. Why? Because it's not working, because it doesn't work. And so you end up losing a little bit of weight on the scale first, but then as your body becomes efficient, which I'm going to explain what happens, that weight is going to slow down and you're going to end up pretty much looking the same, just a smaller version of what you used to look like, if you even get any weight off the scale. And so it's unsustainable, especially with, like I said, that type of person who's never exercised before. Running is so hard. Cardio in general is really, really hard. And so if you're doing something that you don't enjoy, that's hard, that you've never tried before, it's starting to tear down, it's going to physically tear down your body. You're going to be depleted of energy because you're probably not fueling correctly because you are trying to lose weight. So that means no carbs, low calorie, just all of these things that play a role that aren't directly, like running didn't actually cause this, but running is kind of like why, like the symptoms of the running are those things, you know? So those are just kind of like the behind the scenes things that are also happening, but there are like physical things that are happening as well. So we're just going to get into those before I keep rambling. So whenever you tell your body you want to start running, right? So if you wear a fitness tracker, it'll tell you your calories. Not that those are accurate, but just for this example, it's just what I'm just stay with me. So you go for a 2 mile run or whatever, and your watch tells you burn 500 calories. Cool. Next time you do it, not the next time, but eventually after you keep doing those same 2 miles over and over again, your body's going to tell you that you burn 300 calories. Why? Because you're telling your body to do something and it wants to become efficient at it, because obviously you're telling it to do it. It's going to do the best that it can do at that sport. And so eventually the 2 miles is going to feel easier because you're going to be more efficient at it. Your body is going to learn how to use the energy to become more efficient. So that's why you burn less calories. And then if you're specifically, very, very specifically, if you are not fueling your body properly, if you are low calories, low protein, hot, like all of that stuff, then your body is going to start to tear down muscle because your body doesn't need the muscle to run. Your body is trying to get you to be, that's why runners, I mean, if you see the body types that runners have, they're normally like longer and leaner and things like that because they don't need a lot of muscle to run. Your body wants to become efficient at the sport that you're training it to do, and therefore it's going to start to tear down your muscle, which we already know muscle is what speeds up your metabolism. Obviously, it's not like traumatic, like, oh, 1,000 calories, you've just sped up your metabolism. It's not like crazy like that, but every little bit helps. Like eating more protein speeds up your metabolism, getting enough rest, making sure you're strength training. All those things are going to help a little bit. And if you combine them all together, that's where the magic happens. And so you're taking that away from yourself whenever you're doing things like HIIT circuit style training, spinning, running, elliptical for hours. And whenever I say hours, I mean like hours for the week. And then, like I said, your body becomes so efficient at it that eventually the only thing that you have to do is run more. And you're going to run into a wall. Physically, your body is going to just continue to tear itself down. Physically, you're going to run into a wall, and mentally, you're going to run into a wall because you're going to be so depleted of energy. And then you're going to also feel like mentally you're just running this race. You're running this race and you're losing scale weight a little bit, sure, but you're looking at yourself and you're like, why don't I look any different? Because you're literally going to look like a smaller version of yourself. You're not going to be like strong and toned and look fit if that's your goal, of course. And so, yeah, that's pretty much what's happening whenever we're running. Your body literally starts to tear down the muscle to make you more efficient at running, which is the worst thing that you would want to happen, especially if you are unconditioned and overweight, because those people already have very little muscle mass. And so whatever you do have, you are tearing it down even worse. So what can happen sometimes? So if you notice, so body fat percentage is dependent on the person. Obviously, you could have somebody who weighs 130 pounds and have 40% body fat, and look, and another person who weighs 130 pounds but has 20% body fat, and they're going to look completely different. The person with the 40% body fat is going to look very overweight, unhealthy, and the person with the 20% body fat is going to look like strong, fit, and toned and have like that muscle definition. So it's not about weight, it's about body fat percentage and what that is on you. And a lot of times what will happen is people will lose weight, but their body fat percentage went up. And what does that mean? That means that you lost muscle and you held on to all that fat, which is the worst thing that you would want to happen. And whenever you're doing cardio, that is what's most likely to happen. Okay, so I want to make sure that I'm touching on everything. So now, before I get into strength training, I want to make sure I talked about everything we have to do with cardio. So now we'll kind of get into strength training, and I guess like I want to talk about the difference that happens in your body whenever you strength train as opposed to whenever you do cardio. So whenever you do just traditional strength training, real strength training, I hate to say that, but there is a difference between, proper strength training and not proper strength training, unfortunately. So if you are doing just traditional good programming strength training, your body is going to signal to your body that you want to build muscle. You're trying to build muscle, and it will build muscle only if you are also providing it with the food, the nutrients, the protein, the sleep, the recovery that it needs. It will then build muscle for you because that's what you're asking it to do. That's what you're signaling to your body whenever you lift traditional like strength training weights. And so your body will start to build muscle for you. And what do we know about muscle? We know that muscle is a very active tissue. It burns calories. It burns far more calories than fat does. And again, that doesn't mean that you build muscle and you're going to go from being able to eat, 2,000 calories to 3,000 calories. That's not what I'm talking about. We're not talking about extremes here. We're talking about small percentages, but those small percentages coupled with you get your steps in every day, you eat protein, you keep your rest under control, you don't overstress your body, you drink water, you limit, like all those things combined is where the magic happens. It's not one thing. Strength training alone isn't where the magic is going to happen. But strength training is the start if you have all the other things, of course, in order as well. But even if you don't, even if you're kind of shitty with your nutrition, and you're kind of shitty with your rest, your body will still make gains for a short period of time, before it starts like, okay, no, we're done here. Unless you start feeling me properly, I'm not doing this for you. This is too hard. So that's something to consider too. And then another thing that's going to happen is obviously it's going to speed up your metabolism. So cardio slows your metabolism, which means you can eat less, which means you're literally eating less food and working harder. Who wants to do that? Unless you want to do that, then have at it. I don't want to do that. You know what I'm saying? I want to be able to eat as much as possible and stay as fit and as possible without spending hours in the gym. Like that's not my goal, And so strength training helps you build muscle. It helps your body use the calories that you give it more efficiently. So let's say you have been strength training for a while. This is consistently, obviously, and you're really sticking to your program and so on and so on. Let's say you have some times where you just overate, or you just overdo it every once in a while. It is what it is. We all do it. Your body will actually use those calories better than if you were like less muscled and overweight, because you're signaling it to build strength, so your body will take as much of it as it can and be like, okay, we're going to put this to muscle building, and it will store some fat, obviously, we know that, but it will use your calories more efficiently, which is amazing. Like, that's the goal, especially in the US and America, where food is literally everywhere and it is all highly processed, just terrible food everywhere, so easy to access, pretty cheap, considering. So it's so important that you turn your body into this like fighting machine that can fight off all this bullshit that we have around us. Okay. So I'm pretty sure that's all I really wanted to talk about. So your body uses the food more efficiently. And then, yeah, you need far less training when it comes to strength training as opposed to running. Like in the beginning, like I said, if you're running one time a week and you go from no times a week, of course, you might see some benefits. I mean, very minimal. It depends on what your calories are looking like. You might not even notice any benefits. And that's the thing. If you're running and you're not, oh, my foot. If you're running and you don't have your calories under control, you're going to be running and just running and running and running. And as opposed to if you strength train and your calories are still not under control, you'll still build a little bit of muscle, which is going to help your overall physique, which is going to help your overall body fat percentage. Because remember, even if you don't lose fat, but you build muscle, your body fat percentage just went down, right? So yeah, so and I'm not a hater on cardio, and I want to talk about too the benefits, how you can add cardio and it can benefit you. So obviously strength training needs to be the majority of your programming. So whenever I say strength training, I just mean, maybe 2 to 3 times a week is more than enough for a general population to like build some muscle, especially if you're new to the gym and you're hitting your protein and you're focusing on your recovery and all that stuff outside of the gym. 2 to 3 weeks is more than enough for most people. And so if you do want to start incorporating some cardio, like let's say you do want to shed some fat, so you can leave yourself at maintenance, continue your strength training, add the cardio. The cardio is going to put you in a small deficit, and then that's how you can lose body fat slowly, but still keep all your hard-earned muscle. And then another way to do it is, you can be in a slight calorie deficit if you want, like maybe a 200 calorie deficit, and then increase your cardio like one time a week to start. Your body adapts. That's why you don't want to be like, okay, I'm going to start doing 5 days of cardio. No. You need something to work up to. Because what happens when your body adapts at 5? You're going to go to 7 and then 9. You ran out of days. You know what I'm saying? So what I like to do is, like I said, a small deficit if you want, 200 calories maybe, and then increase like one time a week of some cardio with your strength training, of course. Don't ignore the strength training. Then you'll see some great fat loss, and while you're maintaining or even building a little bit of muscle like that. And so that's ultimately the goal. Muscle is not just for looks. Muscle keeps our bodies strong and fit as we age. Muscle is so important. Our bones, our ligaments, our joints, all of that is going to be supported by your strength. And so muscle is just really important. And I know right now it just seems like, oh, it's just a looks things. It's just really not. So before I just continue to ramble, those were all the points I wanted to make. Explain to you what cardio is, how you can implement it in spurts if you want. And then, like I was talking about at the end, if you do want to implement cardio in spurts, you can do it for maybe like 4, 6, 8 weeks if you want, and then cycle through it. Stop doing it for a while. Just make sure you keep your steps in, because our heart is important, but making sure you get enough movement in throughout the day is more than enough to train your heart. And also strength training trains your heart too, of course. But you don't need to do any kind of crazy levels of cardio. Okay, especially if you don't like it. So don't put yourself through that. All right, trust me, I got you. If you have any questions, comment below or send me an email, presidentialfitness1@gmail.com. Bye.